Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel of IC Tales. This is Yashwant Swami, and we have Miss Suhana with us today. She's a psychologist. She works as a queer affirmative and feminist therapist and as a menstrual educator as well. So, Miss Suhana, welcome, and I'm glad to see you here.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Yashwant.
I believe our viewers will get substantive insights of our minds today. And you are a psychologist. So, Ms. Suhana, what made you choose psychology as your career and how it's going now?
You're asking me why I chose psychology as my career?
Like what made you excited about this career or the subject maybe?
I think it was because I was always someone who really liked, helping people. It was a part of me where, I've always been a very empathetic person. I've always been someone who was very driven by community approaches and work related to that. So it was an obvious choice for me to go into psychology because I was actually doing law.
Okay.
And while I was doing law, I came across the subject of victimology and psychology of crimes, which made me way more interested in it. And I actually wanted to change my college and I couldn't get my transfer done properly, which is why I had to take a different degree. And when I saw a degree in psychology, criminology, and rural development, it caught my eye and I was like, okay, this is something I have to learn. And the more I learned about it, I realized that this is definitely something I liked doing. I really liked learning about, human behavior and human thoughts and feelings and mind. And it really resonated with me. I really liked the approaches and the work that I could do in it. So yes, it's going really good now.
So it was a natural interest of yours in the subject of psychology and it developed with time and things.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So ma'am, as a psychologist, you meet many people who are negative in their life. They discuss about their destructive part of their life. So what effects does this have on your mind?
I don't think that, there exists any people in the world who do not have problems. We all have issues. We all have problems. We all think of things, negatively sometimes. And we all deal with a lot of difficulties because pain is inevitably a part of every human being's life. And if they say that, oh, no, I'm always happy, nothing wrong happens to me, then that's a problem too. Because that's not real. Obviously, people have issues. If you're not dealing with your problems, then that means you're really running away from something. That's also an issue, right? So I would say that it's not like I do not have personal issues or personal problems. Every single person does. And I have my own therapist as well. Everyone should. What we say is that every therapist should have a therapist of their own as well to deal with their own.
That's a new thing.
Stuff. Yeah, not just a therapist, but and every therapist should also have a supervisor whom you can actually discuss your cases with, right? So we all, consider our mental health very seriously and take care of ourselves as well. So of course, the cases that I see sometimes do have a negative impact on me or affects me mentally as well. There are times when, things that trigger you happen, especially in your cases and sessions when you hear something, you feel like it resonates with your trauma or it start affecting you. For example, if in a day I take 4 or 5 cases and all 4 or 5 are related to sexual assault or sexual abuse, it will tend to have a very, very emotionally heavy effect on the therapist as well. So things like that do happen. However, we have our own therapists and our own supervisors and our own ways of dealing with it. I always usually take a minute or so after my sessions to ground myself or eat a chocolate or get a cup of coffee to just, bring myself back to this reality. Like, it's okay. Come on, we can do this.
So how do you exactly, because you might also feel depressed. So how do you cope up with that? Like you have a therapist,
and
but
having depressive disorder are 2 different things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, tell me, what were you saying?
Like you told us that you also have a therapist, but you are also a psychologist. So how do you cope yourself?
Exactly, by going to therapy, by taking care of my mental health, by making sure that I also talk to a therapist about what I am going through, just the way other people talk to me, knowing that my mental health can also be taken care of knowing that effort is definitely the way. So I do my own meditation, I write journals, I talk to people, I socialize, I do my own different techniques and methods of helping myself the way I do help my clients as well. So my therapist also helps me with different kinds of techniques and interventions which would help me.
Right. Oh, what's your favorite hobby?
Currently, it's been annoying my husband.
Oh.
But yes, I love reading, dancing, watching movies, watching series.
Okay.
Yeah, I am a very this kind of.
Right. So, Miss Suhanah, you said that pain is inevitable, right? But people try to hide their depression. And so, according to you, what could be the reasons for this?
You know, as a society, we really condemn sadness. It's like people can't accept anybody being sad. You shouldn't be sad at all. However, sadness is just an emotion, just like other emotions, like happiness, like anger, like jealousy. Sadness is also just an emotion, and it needs to be felt. It needs to be expressed and validated. If not, it will accumulate within you and come out in really dark ways or in ways that we can't handle it or we don't want to handle it. It just affects us really badly. So it is necessary for us to, be able to accept emotions just the way we accept other emotions. There is no positive and negative emotions. Emotions are just emotions. It's okay. We just need to validate and accept them. Then we, move on from there. It is very, very highly possible for us to be conscious in our daily life if we just accept the way we feel and validate it.
Right. So, the being sad is stigmatized in our society. Is the connection?
You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to be sad. Like, you hear parents say that if you feel sad, just don't be sad. That's not a very
That's not the solution.
valuable advice at all. Yeah, you can't not be sad. That is repressing your emotions. If you repress your emotions, it can have very negative adverse effects on you. So repressing your emotion is not the way to go about. Not being sad is not going to help, right?
Right. So, ma'am, when people come to you, they share their happenings with you. I want to understand how the mind of a psychologist works, because sometimes listening to so many problems, it could be a little overwhelming. So, what's going in your mind? How do you organize those ideas and the inputs they are sharing with you?
Different psychologists work in different ways. I would say it is very personal in many ways because the kind of approaches that we take are very different, right? Not every psychologist or therapist has similar methods. Some follow CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, some follow dialectical behavioral therapy, some follow ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy, some follow psychodynamic theories. We have different kinds of theories that we follow or different kinds of therapeutic techniques that we follow. So based on which school of thought we feel comfortable with, based on that, we try to assess the client's, whereabouts, their well-beings, how they're feeling, their emotions, their how they are, physically, psychologically, physiologically. We assess all of that, and from there we ask them questions, or we lead them to answers. We give them techniques to do. We give them worksheets and homeworks. So the first step is obviously to listen to them very ardently. To listen is the most important thing, and to try and see it from their perspective, to see it from their shoes. That is also very, very important, because we can't expect their background to also be like our background. Most of the time, the socio-cultural, economic backgrounds are all very different. It's multicultural in nature. So it's very necessary for us to understand that their familial backgrounds or their exposures are definitely not the same as ours. So we can't expect or give them advices that would be suitable for us. That's not the ideal solution at all. It's very necessary to see from where they are coming, and then accordingly see where we can take it from there. It is necessary to equip the client to be able to deal with their problems on their own, to develop them or to bring them up to a state where they are able to deal with these kind of things on their own. right?
Right.
So we equip them, we give them, we give them confidence, we give them power, we give them assurance, validation, and we make them understand what might be the reasons why they are going through what they're going through right now.
Okay.
Right? By
Right.
taking information from their past, or by taking information about themselves. All of these things help. So different approaches in different ways, but yeah, these are the things that goes on in our head when we're listening to people. We're trying to ardently listen to them and get as much information as we can from them.
Right. So it's a very good thing you shared to us. So, ma'am, we are talking in June and it's a Pride month, and you are also a queer affirmative psychologist. So, after revoking Section 377, people are coming out, but still homosexuality and other sexualities are a stigma in our Indian society. So, like, can you share some things like how to be proud of whoever we are?
In a society like ours, it's really difficult to, even if you're queer or not,
Right.
even if you're a straight person, in a society like ours, it's just really difficult to be who you are, because people don't really accept you for who you are. You have to be a version of yourself that society would accept, right? It's really sad. So if it is like that for straight people, you can only imagine how terrible it would be for queer people who are just so different from the so-called normal way of living, which is absolute bullshit. Obviously, there is absolutely no normality in this world, right? Everybody is different. Everyone has their own ways of living. So if everyone was just allowed or just let to be themselves, I think the world in entirety would be queer.
Right. Okay.
But
So,
we have queer as in not just with sexuality. I mean, queer as in just different from each other.
Right.
But we're all
The
expected
heterogeneous.
to be we're just expected to be a certain way. Right. So people try so hard to just fit into this particular box, even though they do not want to fit into that box. They feel like that's the only way to live. That's the only way you would be accepted. That's the only way you can make money. That's the only way you would have family. That's the only way society would look at you as a worthy person. So just to be accepted, you pretend and you live. And that's not okay at all. It's not at all okay. It's necessary for us to let anybody live the way they want to live. Right. Especially with respect to sexuality and love and religion and all of these things, because these are the only choices that a person just gets to live, just gets to have for themselves. If you're not allowed to live the way you want to live with the person that you want to live, sleep with the person that you want to be with, what is the point of life, really? Right?
Living alone. Right. So, ma'am, there is an issue going about marital rape as well, and honorable courts are deciphering it. So, Ms. Suhanah, what is the importance of the consent in bed, and how does it traumatize the woman when it is not followed?
Currently, the laws regarding marital rape in India are pretty controversial, I would say. See, the laws regarding rape is very simple. However, when it comes to marital rape, it's like the courts do not really want to see it because they feel like the sanctity of marriage is being affected, which is really difficult for women to take in, because it's like once you're married, your consent does not really matter at all, right? However, otherwise, we say that anybody below the age of 18, anybody who has consumed any kind of substances, cannot consent at all. So anybody, if you have sexual relationships with them, it would be considered rape, which is very clear-cut definition, and we can really understand it as well. However, when it comes to marriage, even when the wife says no, it is not considered as rape, because it is considered as the husband has the right to ask of it from her and take it when he needs it. I don't think that is okay with anybody at all. Married or not, it's just a contract that we sign for partnership. That does not mean that you're giving away your entire body to somebody else like a slave. And we have already abolished slavery in our country, in the world actually. And how can we expect a woman to just give up her bodily autonomy to a man because she's married to him. That is very, very unfair to ask of a woman to do. It's sort of like she does not have control over her reproduction. She does not have control over her, her own organs, her own body. So what does she really have control over then?
Right.
Nothing, right? It's like there's no point of her existence at all. She's just a toy, a dummy that the man can do anything with, which is extremely unacceptable.
There is a very famous slogan that my body, my rules.
My body, my choice, right?
Yeah, my body, my rules, or my body, my choice. Either it is related to marital rape or maybe abortion laws. At international forums, abortion laws are discussing right now. So, okay. So, ma'am, what is feminism? Is it against the man or is it against the society? Because there is a very thin and undefined line between the narrowness and openness, what we want to do and what society expects us to do.
Why should it be against anything, really? I don't think it's against anything. I think it is in support of all humankind, really, because what feminism asks for is just equity of all sexes and all genders, which makes absolute sense to me, especially when we talk about intersectional feminism. It is very, very inclusive. It talks about everybody. Honestly, I feel like feminism is the way to go because it upholds the sanctity of every living person, right? Okay. I don't think it is against anything. If it is against anything at all, it would be against violence and being anti-human. It would be against not being kind, right? That's all, yeah.
So, like we all discuss about the LGBT, so feminism and feminist movements do support LGBT community and their rights and their living, but society say no, it's wrong. It's not correct with our rituals and our society. So this make a very tussle between the new society and old society. So how do feminism can solve these issues?
It's not about any of these things solving these issues. I think world progresses. As time passes, the world progresses. We didn't think of things the way we used to, we think of now, before. I'm sure that when we were really young, we didn't know anything about LGBTQ. And if we did, we were thought very badly about it, like very negatively about it. But now we are pretty positive towards it. We are all welcoming towards it. We all have identities like that. We have friends who are, queer. We have people, family who is queer, and we're accepting towards it. But that doesn't mean that we were once okay with it either, right? So we progressed eventually.
Right.
Same way, I think eventually many things can change, right? There was a time period in the world where women couldn't vote.
Right.
Women couldn't drive, weren't allowed to at all. But today women can drive, women can vote. And that has obviously been because of the feminist movements. And I think feminist movements have led to so many social changes happening. And when those movements take place, obviously everybody will protest against it and say, oh my God, this is absolutely terrible. We can't accept this and stuff. But eventually it is these movements that has helped society progress in many, many ways. So I think even now, the movements that are happening are only going to help society progress further. And in the coming years, we can see more acceptance coming in, because right now we can see courts accepting, we can see policies of acceptance. We didn't have that before.
Right.
So in the future, we can obviously also see the society, old society as well, being more accepting towards it, because the new society is going to become the old society in a few years for sure. So
right. So do you think the Gen Z is more inclusive?
Do I think what?
Gen Z, it's a word for the new generation, the young generation.
Gen Z. Oh, yeah. Do I think Gen Z is more what?
It's a word for the new generation. I want to ask that.
What did you say after that? Gen Z is more
inclusive.
More inclusive. I would say yes. certainly Gen Z is more inclusive because Gen Z is getting information about inclusivity directly from social media and media right now, which the older generations did not get. Gen Z is also getting information much earlier,
Right.
because when they were younger itself, we've been getting information about all of these things. However, our parents and our grandparents did not get such information when they were younger. So it was difficult.
Right.
It's very difficult for them to accept things when they're much older because, their brain is not in the developing stage anymore. They've already believed what they believe in. So they can't really change their beliefs. However, Gen Z is capable of molding their beliefs,
Right.
seeing things differently, having different perspectives. And that is because we've been getting these informations as children. So it's much more easier. However, there are much more older people also being very accepting towards all these things and are, very well read and understanding. But if we check comparatively, I think Gen Z is definitely more inclusive in nature.
Right. It's great. So, ma'am, I was reading a report which stated that suicide cases are sharply increasing in our society. So, what my experience talking to people is they are confused about why they are living, what is the meaning of their life now, loneliness, hypertension, fights with families and partner, etc. So, if someone is going to commit suicide, what are the changes he needs to bring in his thinking process, and how can he or she do that?
It's not that simple. Or, when we talk about suicide, to just say that what are the changes, we can't just naturally say what changes a person has to bring in their thinking process, because generally a person who wants to die by suicide or is having suicidal ideation is going through a lot of pain. And we would say that they generally have major depressive disorder, which is the reason that drives them to death or killing themselves, or else it's an impulsive decision. It's either one of these two things, but most of the time, majority of the times, it is driven by major depressive disorder. So changes in thought process would be to allow them or help them and treat them to get better from their depression, to know that they are worthy of living. And it's not just changes that has to come from within them. There are also a lot of changes that has to come within society around them. Societal changes are absolutely necessary. Environmental changes are absolutely necessary, because just because a person changes within them does not mean that their environment changes, right? They could still be dealing with a lot of triggers from outside that could drive them or push them or make them feel like they don't want to live anymore, right? So it's not okay to just keep blaming victims or people who are, feel like they do not want to live anymore, because they've reached a place like that only because there's been a lot of needs within them that has not been met. And that really causes a lot of problems within them. So it is necessary for us to make sure that people in our country, people in the world, have their needs really met. Now, for example, if we consider somebody from a lower economic background, right, a poor person, we can't just be like, you need to change your thought process. If they don't get anything to eat any day, if they're not able to sleep at all, right? Their social conditions are so bad, their economic conditions are so bad that they don't feel like living. They feel like there's no point in living. They don't want to live anymore. They want to die. You can't just be like, oh, you need to change your thought process. Things can come. You have to get better. You can't really keep just motivating them. You can't do that. There's a lot of internal work that needs to be done, but along with that, there's a lot of environmental and social changes also that is necessary to be changed. They need food, they need housing, they need shelter, they need economic safety, right? So it's not just the duty of the individual, I would say it's the duty of a society as well.
Right. So what about the rich people? Because, we can see that suicidal tendency is also there in the rich people. They have money, they have every luxuries around them, but they don't have mental peace.
Like I said, pain is inevitable. Pain does not check whether you are rich or poor. It will come to you no matter what. Not all pain comes from lack of money or lack of house or shelter, but pain just comes from different areas of your life, no matter how rich or no matter how poor you are, right? Problems will just come no matter how rich you are. It does not really matter. So it's not just mental peace. It's just A lot of things must be happening in their lives. A lot of things might be going on. And that's the case with everybody's lives, right? Things just happen and you have to deal with it. You
Right.
have to effectively manage it,
Hmm.
right? So rich or poor, it's going to happen to you anyways. But the way you deal with it differs, because a poor person cannot really access help fastly, but a rich person
Right.
can access help very, very quickly. It wouldn't be a
Hmm.
problem for them to pay for a therapist. But if you
Hmm.
look at the condition of a poor person, where will they go?
Right.
Whom will they go to? How can
Hmm.
they pay? They can't even think of therapy or treatment because that doesn't even exist for them. Suffering is not a choice for them. Suffering feels like a part of life for them. They don't feel like they need to go to somebody else for help because they feel like this is it, this is their life. They're supposed to feel all these things. This is just how life is supposed to be. And it's just absolutely terrible.
Hmm. Right. So there is a phrase that therapy is expensive, So what's your comment on this? Is really therapy an expensive in our society?
Compared to other countries, I don't think therapy is that expensive in India,
Mm-hmm.
comparatively.
Mm-hmm.
However, therapy can be deemed expensive in when we consider the prices of other things,
Mm.
right? But what we also have to consider over here is the amount of mental exertion and work that a therapist does when in session, right? It's not just a 1 hour session. The therapist always prepares before the sessions for the client. And after the session, the therapist always does a lot of research and reading
Okay.
and learning for this one particular client in itself. So
Right.
who's going to pay for all of the labor that the therapist is doing, right?
Yeah, right.
Secondly, it is not easy to come up with answers and to figure out why what is happening to this particular person and to come up with treatment plans and to help this person through. It's a very, very long term process. It's a journey and it's not at all easy.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, our education is not cheap either. We have
Right.
all paid for our education, which is really, really expensive too. And we need to pay our bills, we need to pay our rent. There is a feeling among people that therapy is just people listening to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just someone's telling problems, you're just listening to it, you're giving advices. Why should you get paid for it? That's not therapy at all.
Okay.
That's friendship,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
So this is actual labor.
Right, right.
This is actual labor. And we need to understand the kind of knowledge that the therapist has and the amount of work that the therapist has done on themselves, right? The therapist has also to pay for their own therapy.
Right.
Because of the emotional burden that it causes on them, right?
True.
They also have bills to pay. Bills to pay,
True.
sorry. Yeah.
Sure. So, Ms. Suhanah, can you please brief our viewers about your services and online and offline?
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely. I am a queer affirmative counselor and also a feminist therapist, and I use an eclectic form of therapy, which is I include ACT and CBT and also a person-centered therapy within my form of practice. I practice online mostly right now, and I take very few face-to-face sessions, offline sessions, because I am traveling from time to time, so I do not really get the time to do that. I am registered under the startup called ShopDoc. So under ShopDoc, I take my video sessions online. I'm currently not taking any new clients because I'm saturated with the number of clients that I have right now. I also take workshops and sessions and things like that online. I also go to colleges and schools and take awareness sessions. So these are the things that I do.
Okay, that's great. So thank you so much, Ms. Suhanah. It's a very insightful discussion with you about psychology, about mind. So nice to talk to you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Thank you.
have a great
Thank you.
day.